Sally is an internationally recognized glass artist who started working in glass at age 13. She earned a BFA from the University of Kansas in 1980, and in 1986, she earned her degree in applied science and scientific glass technology from Salem College. She presently is a scientific glass blower and glass instructor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and the University of Vermont, where she teaches scientific glass blowing and the properties of glass to graduate students in chemistry, physics, and art. She has taught glass at Urban Glass, Penland School of Crafts, Pilchuck Glass School, Pittsburgh Glass Center, and also Klenel's Studio in Sweden, and many others. She currently has a private art glass studio in Montague, Massachusetts. Jenny Brown is also with us today. She became the collection manager for the glass flowers of Harvard University in 2012. She has worked on many exciting projects since then, which include co-authoring Glass Flowers, Marvels of Art and Science at Harvard, completing the most extensive exhibit renovation in the collection's history, and co-curating special exhibitions within the Glass Flowers Gallery. Jenny's background in art and library science, combined with her experience assisting glass artist Toot Zinsky, prepared her to work with this unique collection. Ginny Grieb is a research scientist and lab manager that currently studies development of the spinal cord using a zebrafish model system at Syracuse University. She holds a degree in zoology from SUNY Oswego. Following graduation, Ginny managed a laboratory in the Department of Cell and Development Biology at SUNY Upstate Medical University, contributing to research projects studying cortical plasticity and autism. Her research led to the publications in the journals of experimental neurology, current protocols in neuroscience and genetics. She pursued her passion of glass artistry under the mentorship of Sally at Syracuse University and the Corning Museum of Glass. Her passion for nature in conjunction with her love for science has driven her passion for both scientific glass blowing and faunal art. In addition to her role as a member of the American Scientific Glass Society, Ginny has diligently pursued her apprenticeship with Sally Prasch and continues to incorporate her passions for science with her glass work. Heather Mcelwee is the Randy and L. Van V. Dollar Jr. Executive Director of Pittsburgh Glass Center, where she has worked since 2001. Overseeing educational programming, exhibitions, fundraising, and strategic direction for the organization. She has curated numerous shows in the Pittsburgh Glass Center's Hodge Gallery, including Lifeforms, Pittsburgh Biennial, and Turned On, Lighting Hooks Up with Sculpture. Her own work is an investigation of the relationship of vessel to architecture and has been shown in galleries across the country. Heather has a BFA in glass from College for Creative Studies and a master's degree in arts management from Carnegie Mellon University. Astrid van Giffen is the Associate Conservator at the Corning Museum of Glass and holds a degree in the conservation of glass and ceramics from the Netherlands Institute for Cultural Heritage in Amsterdam. Before joining the Corning Museum, she worked briefly as a conservator in private practice and was a Samuel H. Kress Fellow in Objects Conservation at the Strauss Center for Conservation and Technical Studies of the Harvard Art Museums. During this time, she did extensive research on the Blaschkas and their glass, focused primarily on the collection of the Harvard University herbaria, or the Harvard glass flowers in earlier works, which was expanded with an independent study of the Blaschka invertebrate collection at the National Museum, Scotland in Edinburgh. Her main research interests and areas of publication continue to include the glass models by the Blaschkas, as well as the deterioration of glass and developing new treatment techniques for glass objects. So as you all can see, we have an incredible panel assembled here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sally so that she can talk more about the exhibition and we can hear from our wonderful panel.
Okay, thank you all for coming. I just want to let you know this is our third Glass Lifeform exhibit. There were two others in 2013 and 2016, and they were inspired by and organized by Robert Mickelson, who continues to be engaged in this wonderful exhibit. and I hope he might be on the call now, so that will be good. Glass Lifeforms 2021 exhibit was many years in the making, and COVID extended it another full year. But we're very happy to have it live at the Fuller Museum. Well, now I'm going to share my screen. Oh dear, there it is. I have a little PowerPoint presentation I would like to show you. Some of you probably haven't come to the Fuller Museum yet. It's a beautiful museum. It has this little pond by it with ducks and swans, but there's outdoor sculptures and indoor sculptures that you can see. This is a perfect place to have our exhibit. Oh, let's see, I don't know how to forward now. I'm gonna have to, I'm sorry, I'm having some problems. Oh, there, can you see that?
I think you need to reshare your screen, Sally.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not real good at this stuff. There we go. So I want to thank everybody that helped with this exhibit, because it was a lot to put on, a lot of unpacking, a lot of careful packing of stuff. Here you can see Beth. She's setting up this beautiful piece right here. And she's the director. And so it's not going to, okay. Here we go. So having the exhibit at the Fuller Museum, and I was really wanting it to be close to the Ware collection. That way people could go from the Ware collection at Harvard to this exhibit also, maybe even one day or a weekend. So here's the layout at the Fuller Museum. The Harvard collection, the Ware collection, let us use some of these beautiful images of the Blaschkas. So here you can see the layout. We have a lot of space and room to walk around pieces. This piece by Carolyn is absolutely beautiful. Each flower is just incredible, and it's wire wrapped all together. Just love that piece. And so here you can see how things are set up with lots of space around things. So you can really see things. So now I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about, you know, individual pieces that were accepted into the exhibit. And I'll just go over a few of them because there's so many, they're so beautiful. But we'll just start kind of at the beginning and go through things. This piece I really enjoyed very much. I like the iridescence of the glass. This exhibit was very special. I wanted it to be open to everybody in the world, and we did get quite a few people from all over the world, and that was very exciting. So we'll just kind of look at these a little slowly. The way we set this up for jurying, I wanted it to be very fair. And so I used, what was it called? Art Call. And I had all the jurors be able to go into Art Call and look at all the submissions. Now it was up to the jurors if they wanted to do it blind or if they wanted to see the bios or anything. But doing it this way, it seemed very fair. As far as I know, the jurors didn't speak to each other. It was all, they ranked things all by themselves. All those rankings were added up by the software in Art Call, and that's how we came to their end result. And I just think what they chose was beautiful, just incredible. Yeah, I also should say that I want to thank Jeremy and Wes, they're both in the exhibit. They helped me a lot with moral support and putting things out there to get people to submit work. One thing that impressed me this year were some of the paperweights that were submitted. This is a beautiful paperweight. You can see the flowers in there with the sandblasting in the back or the acid etching in the back. Just gorgeous. We haven't had a lot of paperweights before, but this year we did. This is a piece that the Blaschkas were very well known for. I really like that piece a lot. Here again, some paperweights or paperweight. This paperweight right here, I love this piece. It's just so gorgeous. Looking at this piece right here, not only is it accurate and it's beautiful, but the way he displayed it on chainmail, glass chainmail, I thought was very interesting and very beautiful. This piece, you're gonna have to come to the museum and see this piece, because as you walk by this piece, the color will actually change a little bit. There's a little bit of iridescence with it. Absolutely gorgeous. Some of the, you know, the forms were so accurate and so beautiful. I'm going to stop here, I think. I have a few questions for the jury. I also have the life form, you know, everything that was exhibited. So can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
We can, Sally. I
Okay.
was wondering too, did you want me to say a few words while you have your PowerPoint about the from our perspective as a museum and what it was like to put it together and kind of some of our observations that we had? If you know, I think if I'm happy to just kind of just share a little bit about that. If you wanted to maybe scroll back up to the images of the gallery, just for reference point. But I was looking back through my emails to see when we started talking about doing this, and it was back in 2017. So it's been, as you said, you know, a long road, and COVID certainly didn't make it any shorter. But it's always just such a joy to see these projects come together when they do. And for us, we haven't had a glass exhibition at the museum since 2017 also, when we did Amber Cowan's solo exhibition. So I've been looking forward to this for many years, to be able to have the galleries filled with glass. And what's really interesting too is that at the same time that Glass Lifeforms 2021 will be open, we have another glass exhibition by David Schnuckel, which is kind of the opposite extreme in that it's very experiential, and really looking at kind of how to use glass practices towards failure and dismantling objects, whereas Glass Lifeforms is really about perfection and creating these beautiful, perfect objects. So it's an interesting juxtaposition for people that are able to come see it and visit both of the shows. But you know, it was such a joy to put this together. Our team did a wonderful job in unpacking all the objects, and you know, when you have this many glass objects being shipped to the institution, there's a lot of sleepless nights over what you're going to find when you open it. But
some of the pieces are gorgeous. They took some.
So we, you know, it's just been wonderful, and we're so happy to have it in the galleries during the winter time too, over the winter, because I think visitors will have a wonderful experience to really engage in such gorgeous natural forms when we're in hibernation phase outside in the area. And yeah, so it's really, really beautiful, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So please come visit. And what we did too is we had all the botanicals are in the front space, because in the galleries that it's shown, there's actually two big galleries. So all the botanicals are in the front space, and there's lots of great conversations going on between those objects. And then in the back is where we have the invertebrates. The only exception to that is David Licata's lichen piece that you had up there. He's in the back too. So, but other than that, there's we did manage to kind of separate it by theme, which I think works really well. So, and bravo to the jury for selecting such incredible work.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing before we go into questions too. I think I picked the best people to be on the jury. I've worked with most of them before, and I just I just respect them so much. Their history with glass, their knowledge of the Blaschkas, I just think is incredible. So the things that I had them jury on was accuracy, aesthetic beauty, presentation, and originality. So those things are what they juried on. Beth, did you want to say something? No. Okay. We do want to have this open for questions, but of course I have a few questions first. And I'd like each juror to respond to this question. You know, how you went about your own personal jury. Did you do it blind? Was it difficult? And, you know, just talk a little bit about your experiences during this exhibit. So if we want to start maybe with Heather. Oh, you got to unmute. Oh, Beth, we have to unmute Heather. So I'm asking jurors questions now, Beth, and they have to, oh, good, okay.
It worked. Sorry, I was trying to unmute and it said the host has not allowed people to unmute themselves. So yeah, thanks, Sally. It was really an honor and a pleasure to get to jury the Lifeforms show again this year. I think I might be the only person who has juried all 3 exhibitions. So I feel like a real sense of pride, connection to this exhibition. And I was really honored that you asked me again. For me, I think, you know, Sally mentioned the kind of areas that we were supposed to be looking at as we were reviewing the work. And I think, but didn't necessarily say they had to be equally weighted, you know? And so for me, I think really it was the kind of creativity, originality side of things. Certainly work needed, in my opinion, to be technically well executed. You needed to understand what it was they were trying to recreate. You know, part of the application process was that they actually submitted an image of whatever biological form it was that they were recreating. So there needed to be representation, which of course takes technical skill and ability. But for me, the pieces that really showed the artist's vision of what they were trying to do with that, not just making a perfect recreation of the object, but really, you know, either incorporating additional elements or the way they positioned perhaps multiple, you know, figurative elements together, you know, is really what stood out to me and probably the pieces that rose to the top in my selection process.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Astrid, would you like to address that question?
Yeah, I want to kind of echo what Heather was saying. You know, I was very honored to be part of this. I've never juried an art exhibition before. As a conservator, I'm usually behind the scenes. And so kind of being part of the other side was kind of fun. And I do have a lot of experience looking at glass and especially, you know, the Blaschka models. And my process, I did kind of weigh all 4 of those equally, and I tried to be very kind of organized about how I assessed each object. So I looked at them each individually and gave them scores for each of those 4 categories. And then I went through the entire list like that, and then I went back and looked at, okay, well, because there were some that were just that really stood out to me that, you know, had high scores from the beginning, but there were a whole lot that were kind of in the middle where I had to kind of compare them to each other to be able to kind of, well, is this one, you know, it's pretty accurate, but maybe less original, or, you know, so I kind of went through the list twice. Probably made more work for myself that way, but I really wanted to understand what the objects were about. And what I didn't really look at the artist bios so much, but I did look at their artist statements to see, you know, what were they intending to do. And I think my focus was a lot on accuracy and kind of the life that the piece had. So something, you know, the ones that really stood out to me were the ones that just brought kind of joy and humor and life into it too, but were also very accurate.
Okay, thank you, Astrid. Jeannie, do you want to say something?
So like the other two have already said, you know, I was very honored to get to do this. It was really amazing to see all the pieces come from all over the world and what everybody had come up with. I think I went through it numerous times. The first time I just went through and made my own like set of notes for everything. And as Astrid said, there was things that definitely stood out. And I just kept going back through and stuff over and over again with a lot of the pieces. And in the end, I did everything blind, so I didn't know who the artist was as I was going through. And I think I judged a lot on accuracy and creativity. Being a zoologist and stuff, I went through also first identifying everything myself before I read what they had written and stuff to see if it matched up. And there was just so many amazing pieces. And I did really enjoy like when they put different glass techniques together, or as Heather said, the different species together and stuff, and got really creative with the models.
You're muted, Sally.
Okay, thank you. And then let's see, who else do we get? We have Jenny.
Yes. You know, thank you so much for inviting me to be a juror. As everybody else said, this was an honor. I've been aware of this exhibition since the first Lifeforms, and you know, in my role with the glass flowers, I'm often asked, do artists today make works like the Blaschkas? So, I talk about that, and I tell them about this project. And so it was really, a great pleasure to be a juror for this, and to see these different works and to see how artists are inspired by the Blaschkas. I will say that jurying these works was much more difficult than I thought it would be. The quality of the works was so high that it really made, it really made ranking them and kind of, comparing, the works and, ranking them. It was really quite challenging. And I found myself having to, I did this over, many days, and sort of, revisit the works and kind of, think about how I was judging the criteria. But it was a wonderful challenge to have. And, I was so happy to see what ended up making it through with, all of the jurors, feedback compiled.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it was good to have you and Susan as jurors, since you've both been with the Ware collection so much. I really appreciate it very much. Okay, I have a couple other questions, but if people have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand.
Sally?
Yeah?
Before we go on to questions,
Okay.
would you like to maybe unshare your screen so that we can see people a little bit better? And then I think, at some point we can maybe go back and look at the website too. But I think, while we're chatting, it might be good to just be able to see people. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I wanted to ask Heather, you know, you have a long history with glass. You've seen the glass movement changing, you know, and you've seen things come and go. And I'm wondering where you think the glass life form exhibit, since, you know, this is the third one, hopefully we'll have another one again. Where do you think it fits into the glass movement?
Yeah, that's a good and complicated question, Sally. I think that, you know, artists throughout history have obviously always looked to nature for inspiration. So I don't see that going away ever. So obviously I could see there being 20 more iterations of glass life forms, because I think that will always be an inspiration. You know, interestingly, one of the exhibitions that we hosted here, we had a review where the critic said that realism is dead. And it was not a super favorable review. You know, honestly, they thought that realism is dead. And, you know, I would disagree. And I would also say that, again, from the criteria I was judging from, and I think the pieces that you can see in the online gallery, and hopefully if you get a chance to visit the Fuller in person, you know, this is not an exhibition just about people making exact replicas of things. It's not, you know, it's inspired by the Blaschkas, whose job was to make models for scientific study. You know, that's not what these artists are doing. You know, they're being inspired by that concept, but they're taking it and really making it their own, putting their own creative spin on it, whether it's through the techniques that they use, or like I said, the placement of the creatures or the environments that they put them in, how they arrange the objects. You know, these are definitely incredible artists doing really unique and wonderful things. And I think that I could see this exhibition going on forever, because like I said, I don't think there'll ever be a time when artists aren't inspired by the natural world.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you there. I just think this could go on and on and on and on. And I think every artist that I've talked to, you know, that submitted work, they're so excited about this exhibit. You know, I think it's just very popular. Yeah. And Astrid, can I hear from you on that same question?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think, like Heather said, nature has always been an inspiration, and it always will be. So I think this exhibition it's right in the middle of that, and it's going to continue to grow. And you know, there's a lot of beautiful pieces that have come out of it, and I think it'll continue forever. And you know, there's so many pieces at the Corning Museum of Glass that are not either that are directly inspired by the Blaschkas, or have other senses of nature that, you know, they're imitating or are inspired by. So I think, yeah. Yeah.
Can I just jump back in and say too, that I don't think there's any other media that could do that as well as glass. You know, like when you look at us, again, especially in person, the way that artists have, you know, thinned the glass enough to get translucency through the petals of flowers, the way that they really exist in the real world, or have used powders to create a texture that is just looks like you could run your hand across the lemon and it would feel exactly like a real lemon. You know, I don't think there's any other material that could do as good a job. I mean, obviously, I think everyone on this call is probably a glass lover, so I'm preaching to the choir, but you know, to see these works in person, really, it's just brings it to life.
Yeah, and I'll also add that, you know, as the Corning Museum has a collection of invertebrate models from the Blaschkas, and there are artists that come in and do residency at the museum constantly, and I regularly give tours to show all those Blaschka models. Most of them aren't on view. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And there's always, you know, very lively conversations on different aspects of the models themselves, or the type of creatures that, you know, artists are drawn to and inspired by.
Okay, thank you. Jeannie, you're our scientist. I'm wondering, you know, these glass models, do you find models still being used in science? Do you find it, you know, something good for displays or things like that?
Sorry. I think so to some extent. When when you can't hold something in your hand, like a creature, or you don't have access to all those plants, in all parts of the world at all times and stuff. So if you have a model, the students can turn it around and look at it and stuff. And if it's well done, like all the Blaschkas obviously and stuff have been, you can really, really get a sense of what it was like. Because you can't always physically be in there. And a lot of times it's just not the same as in a book, or even a photograph. I'm sure a lot of the models actually in the exhibit are going to look completely different in person than they did in the photograph. And I'm sure a lot of the photographs just didn't do them justice.
Okay, and Jennifer, do you think there's going to be a lot more artists doing glass models after this exhibit? And what do you see the future of that?
I mean, I hope so. One of my favorite things is that I do get to interact with different artists. Glass artists, people working in other media, who are all inspired by the Blaschkas and making works, inspired by them and inspired by nature more broadly. I hope that people, keep making work, like this, and challenge themselves with trying to get as close to the Blaschka models as they can. But I talk with, sculptors come by, painters, I get to interact with so many wonderful artists, and it's always a pleasure to just, hear how the Blaschka's works inspire other artists. So I think that'll continue.
Now, you've also hasn't Wes come out there to do some demos occasionally?
Oh yes, Wes is a great friend of the Glass Flowers. When we renovated the exhibit in 2016, and Wes kindly joined us for our opening events. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have active glassworking happening in the museum. I'm sure all of you understand the logistical challenges that presents. But Wes, we did have a video that showed Wes working, and he brought some pieces and he made himself available to talk to visitors and answer their questions. So yeah, he's been incredibly helpful, and he's a great friend of the collection.
And just to let people know, Wes Fleming, he does have a piece that he's got a lady slipper in the exhibit that's absolutely beautiful. I see we got a couple questions in the chat. There's a question, is there going to be a catalog? And yes, I've been working on that. We'll probably have it out before it closes. And we're going to include pictures of the exhibit space now also. So it's going to be very nice. And Beth wrote a nice introduction for that. And I'm just reading another question real quick. It is also important when so many of natural forms are endangered that we have a powerful representations that capture the spirit, the characters, or details, textures, etc., for future generations. And yeah, that is very important. And thank you for saying that. That's a very important thing. Let's see. Okay,
Sally,
so
I have a question too for you and for Heather, because I know that you've been involved in all the iterations of Glass Lifeforms 2021. I'm curious how the 2021 version compares to the others that you've done, if you've seen differences in the work submitted and the work selected, or kind of any kind of through lines through the different versions.
I think my comment might just be that the work is just getting better and better. Like the bar just feels like it gets raised every time. And so, there's so many people out there doing really incredible work. And I think as people have become more familiar with this, now 3-time exhibition, the level of submissions has just gone up. And so I'd say that there's work that didn't make the cut to be in the in-person show this time that would have absolutely made the cut in one of the previous shows. And so I think that, just speaks to the caliber. There could have been 2 exhibitions from the submissions that we had, and they both would have been high caliber, incredible exhibitions. So that'd be my kind of big observation.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Heather. It just keeps getting higher and higher and higher, the quality of pieces. Also, it is getting more and more known around the world. I think we had more submissions from different countries this time around. And so that was really nice to see. Yeah.
How many countries? Do you remember? It was,
I think 16.
yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. And that's one thing I really wanted to make this a very fair thing to get into. And I also wanted it to be, represented from the world. A lot of times we get so into America, like it's nice to see so many different countries represented here.
And also, I know that we have some of the artists in the audience today. So as we're all sitting here thinking about the show and talking about it, I wonder if any of the artists would like to unmute themselves, or we can help you unmute. I see Jen Fuller is here, David Licata is here, Carolyn Baum is here. I'd love to just hear from them about, put them on the spot to hear kind of what their process is like and what it's like to be part of the show, and kind of what their kind of intent is in doing this work. Jen, I'm going to put you on the spot because I can see you. Are you able to unmute yourself, or do we need to do that? Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Totally on the spot. Hi, everybody. Well, this is a huge deal for me because I've never shown with the glass artist world, even though glass is what I specialize in. This is my first glass show, and so thanks for having me. It's really cool to see everybody's work. Sorry, I got a little nervous. What was your question?
I'm just wondering, what was it, kind of what is your intent in making these botanical forms? And is this outside of your normal practice, or did you create work specifically to submit for the show?
Well, the piece I submitted, my nature mandala, I made specifically for you guys because I wanted to just really push the amount of specimens I was able to showcase in one shippable frame. I would have gone even bigger, but we had to get it to you. This is one half of what my art practice is. All of my works are mainly nature based, but the pot de verre is really developing for me right now, and getting some traction as I push kind of the specimen collection. And it's very much inspired by Blaschka's because their range and diversity of specimens was so massive and kind of untouchable to me. And so I've taken a keen interest in kind of pursuing every botanical I can possibly render as hyper real as possible in the last 5 to 6 years. So
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And actually, I see Victor Trabuco on.
Yes, hi. Hi, Sally.
Hi, you've been in the glass field for a long time and you've done beautiful paperweights all your life. Tell me how things have changed for you during this process.
Well, I've been working with glass for 47 years. And when I think the first paperweight convention I went to was in Boston, and I saw the collection there. And early on, I just said, wow, how were all these pieces made? Now here I'm 72 years old now, and I'm really putting an awful lot of effort into it. In fact, I think I'm going to develop a whole body of work going in this direction because it's really exciting.
Did the glass Lifeform exhibits kind of push you towards that, or were you just going to go for that anyway?
No, I was working in that direction even when I first talked to Robert about getting into the show. And I was doing some lampwork orchids, and then I was fusing them to the surface so they wouldn't be quite as delicate. And that was my first first piece, but now I've kind of branched off into going into making them freestanding and, you know, using the metal skeleton as they did. And if you use it in the right way and kind of disguise it so it doesn't detract from how the process itself, so it doesn't look like the process. And it's been really very rewarding. I'm really having a great time with it.
It's cool. Thank you.
Sally, if you don't mind, I'm going to pull up the website as we
Okay.
talk so people
Yeah.
can, I'm going to just share my screen.
Okay.
And that way, as we continue our conversation, people can, I'll kind of scroll slowly down as we go. I hope everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
good.
looks very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all incredible pieces. I'm very happy with what was submitted. But even if you scroll down further to the things that did not get in the show, that's also very beautiful. So I'm going to have to agree with Heather that we could have had 2 shows. It's beautiful. Let's see, there's somebody else asking a question. Clinton raised his hand to speak, so if we can unmute Clinton.
Hello. Hi. Okay. All right. The inspiration, I guess that piece inspired me just by going out for a walk in our yard. We've got about 10.5 acres and our blackberries were in bloom at the time. So sometimes if I'm coming up with a creative stump, I'll just go for a walk in the woods, take a loop around the property. There's a brook that runs through it and everything. And I get a lot of inspiration from that. I also have an extensive library that I keep in my studio as well. If I'm drawing a mental blank, I'll flip through that and just kind of look for something that sparks my interest.
Here you are. I'm just going to pull your piece up. I'm sorry it took me so long. Yeah, so this is Clinton's work. It's beautiful. Yeah, and I agree with the comments just about how incredible the paperweights are. Really just spectacular. And we have have them grouped together. So I think it's going to draw people right in. Really beautiful.
You know, if you click on the paperweight, yeah, for you, if you go, but there you go, you can see a close up. Clinton, can you tell me how long you've been working in glass?
22 years now. And I've been doing encased paperweights for about 12 of those years. I taught myself how to make them in my free time when I wasn't working in the glass factory. I actually met Paul Stankard around 2008. I wasn't familiar with Paul or his work, and he was doing a demo at a local gallery close to us, and they needed to borrow a torch. So I brought it down and set it up and met Paul and was just really fascinated by his work. And I started doing my own research on how to make vacuum encased paperweights.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, these leaves I think are really gorgeous. I love them. Yeah, that just stops me in my tracks. Now, are they on the call? Do you want to talk about your leaves?
Thanks, Sally. So nice of you. Really appreciate your words. And yeah, I started making leaves back in 2011. I went to Corning and took a class and just started going from there. And the process started collaborating with Dean, who is much more detail oriented than I am. So it's a really good fit for this kind of work where you need a little bit of both. So we've really had fun coming together on this, and both just loving nature and conservation as well. It's just so important to us and the way we live our lives. So we really feel a deep connection with the work that we create, not only from an environmental stewardship standpoint, but also just in terms of, the connection to society in general and community. So, anyway, we're just thrilled and honored to be a part of the exhibition. And I want to thank you and Beth and all of the jurors. It's just a phenomenal show. And I don't think I'll ever get tired of going back and looking at all the pictures. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so a lot of you are on here, so let's hear some questions. Anybody? Okay, then I'm gonna tell a story about this piece right here, the yucca piece. I love this piece. I had to talk Carolyn into submitting this piece because she lives in Florida and she was worried about transporting it up to this area. And I said, just submit it, you know, just put this on. And it did get in. And so what she did is she had somebody personally drive it to Albany, to a friend's house in Albany, New York. And then a person personally drove it to my house, and it sat in a big crate in my dining room for months. And then I hand delivered it to the museum. The way she packed this was beautiful, and it just, you opened up the crate and then unfolded, and it was just wonderful. If you notice, you could see that she's used wire to wrap the stems. So again, a lot like the Blaschka's using wire, she's using wire also. Yeah.
See if there's anything else we can.
Can we look at the little mice? I really like the little.
Oh yeah. Did
I was just gonna put a little plug in for CMOG. So for all of those artists out there who are worried about shipping or
yes.
packing their objects, the CMOG's YouTube channel has a series of videos that we created to help artists pack. So kind of some tips on how to pack glass in different ways. So the Blaschkas themselves, actually, you can imagine those incredibly fragile objects shipping all over the world from Germany. But their kind of trick was to secure the glass to a base and then securing the base into a crate or however. So while there is some record of damaged objects arriving, overall, they traveled fairly well because of this system of securing the base and not having any direct pressure on the glass itself. So yeah, thought I'd put that out there.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you. That's very important. So this piece I just absolutely love. I love, it's kind of funny, it's humorous, but it's also so detailed. Those little feet on the little mice, well, that's a real mouse right there. They're just perfect. The little eyes, I mean, they look those little toes, very, very, very well done. And she also put in a couple little chocolate jimmies, for little mice poops to go along with it.
We said today when we were putting the finishing touches and staff was talking about this piece, and we all adore it, of course, and said this is probably the first time we've ever included excrement in a in one of our exhibitions. So it's really fun. I mean, this is a great piece, and that it's really wonderful to have that shift from the front gallery, which has all the botanicals, to the back gallery that has the invertebrates and the skulls and the insects and the cockroach and all the really incredible. The mosquito is just like so magnificent. I mean, it's just, I think you just can spend a lot of time in both.
Yeah, can we look at the mosquito?
Sure.
My big worry was how to get all these things to the museum, and I'm surprised everybody did very well. We only had a few problems, so that's good.
It's probably at the very bottom. Yes.
There it is. This is when I called Beth and I said, maybe we could fit a few more than 50 into the exhibit. But I love, you know, the redness of that. I mean, the delicate little pieces here, it just amazes me, and it's so beautiful. I can't wait to see this in the exhibit.
And I think, just to jump in, like, I feel like for me, this is like a great example of like that subtle touch of creativity, right? Like, it's not just recreating a mosquito, it's like doing it with a belly full of blood, you know, like that's
Yeah.
the part that just like takes it from being just a like, here, I made this perfect replica, to like, I made this kind of unique object.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right, Heather.
Yeah, I think that's what, you know, I think what's really successful about the show is that there are a lot of pieces living at that intersection of science and art, and really has that incredible representation, but also has artistic expression in it, and just really, you know, not just merely technical skill, but also, you know, conceptual content, and just, you know, really looking at it in a different way. I'm going to bring up Wesley's piece because it's really beautiful. They're all great.
That's just beautiful. It just feels like to me that it's just dripping, you know. It's so beautiful. Love his work. So each artist, they had 1 to 3 photos they could send in, plus what the image that they were, you know, coming from.
I'm curious to hear, because Sally, you know the results of the jury, and I know that they juried blind and didn't know each other's scores. Did you
Right.
think that there was a lot of consensus? Was there a lot of,
Well,
it split?
there was, for me, there was a lot of surprises. You know, I was like, oh, that didn't get in. Oh, that didn't get in. But there were so many beautiful pieces, you know. They were pretty much similar, but some things were very different, and I was surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with, you know, the comments that it really could have been 2 exhibitions. I mean, and I do not envy the jury for having to make those decisions, because really is just phenomenal, all this works that were entered into the show. And yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and from the jurors' perspective, like, there were some pieces that would have been in my top 50 for sure that are not in the in-person show, you know? And so like that, there is that give and take of jurying with a group, you know, of people, and we didn't, you know what other people or how other people were scoring things. And so, you know, when Sally sent the list of like, okay, here are the, you know, I think it's 52 objects that made the cut, you know, there were a few pieces for me where I was like, oh, I can't believe this thing that would have been in maybe my even top 5 or top 10, you know, didn't make the cut. But again, I think that just speaks to the incredible quality of the work submitted. And, you know, if you look through the list of some of the pieces that didn't get in, there are some really well-known artists who made really beautiful things that didn't make the cut. And, you know.
Yeah, I agree. There were some surprises. But I'm really happy with what got in. Could we look at Melissa's paperweight? It's still wait down the other way.
Down.
Yeah. Up. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's in alphabetical order for their first names. There we go. This is another paperweight. Again, I was very impressed with the paperweights. And I liked really what she did around the edge of this paperweight. You know, here she has cut through 2 layers of color here. This is quite a bit of work. It's just gorgeous. I don't think I've ever seen a design like that on the edge of a paperweight before. I find that very unique. And the inside's beautiful.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing because we're just about out of time. And I want to see if there's any other last minute questions.
Would any other artists like to speak about their work?
Oh, there I go. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say hi and thank you for being part of this show. I submitted a piece made out of basically I used to make a lot of glass trees when I first started making glass, and I miniaturized it inspired by walks in the woods. And it was the perfect time to focus during COVID and having a young baby, making this whole lichen piece. So this took me in a little different direction, and just I have lots of little scrap pieces that I still want to assemble into another one, as I was going to see how big I could make this reindeer lichen. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I've always been inspired by the glass flowers at Harvard, and got to go there a few years ago. Have made a lot of lady slipper orchids, and have been always inspired by that collection. So yeah, I'm so happy to be selected in this amazing group of artists. And yeah, it's amazing to see all the people online who didn't get in, and I'm like, wait, what? That person didn't get in with that piece. But it's just it's a phenomenal grouping. And I think I got to see one of the other Glass Lifeforms exhibit at the GAS a few years ago, and yeah, I'm just happy to be a part of it, and hopefully go stop by the Fuller and see it in person. Like, I got to drive it out and see it, the piece, and I got to see Katarina's mouse when she was dropping it off the same day. So that was a unique experience.
Yeah, it's a beautiful museum. It's really a beautiful location. And I think, the setting for this exhibit is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're surrounded by so much natural beauty in our setting. So it really is such a perfect fit. And again, I love the fact that we're going to have that through the winter when all the outside kind of gets buried in snow, and it's, stick season for us. So I love that we'll be able to have an incredible experience for everybody inside, and to be able to continue to experience nature. So yeah, so I think we're pretty much out of time. So I just wanted to thank Sally and thank all of the jurors for being here today. And thank you to Susan for also being on the jury. And thank you to our team at Fuller Craft for taking on the adventure of installing a glass exhibition. And we are open for business. Please, everybody come by and see the show. We are hoping that when it closes in the spring, in April, we are going to try to do an in-person closing reception, provided that things continue to improve as it relates to COVID. So, keep your ears open for that. So we'll definitely be keeping people posted, but we definitely would love to get everyone in person to see it.
Well, thank you for having our Zoom meeting.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.